Drama is something everybody has to endure in life, no matter how socially isolated you are. Disputes are natural, but it's our responses that showcase our true selves. Some ignore it, others compromise and bend over backwards to resolve it, even if the terms are unfavourable. However, there are a special few who like to fan the flames. Our boy Randy Stair was one of these individuals. In 2015, Dylan Roof's long-lost twin landed himself in quite some hot water. A small group of 5 or so fans had done/said something to irritate Make Me Bad 35's little bastard child here. Our angry little elf had enough. He decided to block them. The ensuing chaos can only be described as nothing short of hilariously pathetic. Even a 2-year-old could make better decisions. Thanks to a recently uncovered document released by the elf himself, we can finally dive into the finest drama in the history of the internet, the self-proclaimed Randygate. No, he didn't shove a banana up his ass like the amazing atheist. Okay, he probably did considering his sexual orientation, but he never recorded it, not that I could find anyway, yet. And the video inspired by it, a promise kept. The year is 2014. In Randy's own words, this was one of his better years. Many amazing feats were accomplished. He graduated college with a degree in communications. The HD version of his beloved waifu's theme song was uncovered. He even managed to escape the tyrannical grasp of Weiss, finding a new job at a hospital in Wilkes-Barre, which he quit on the first day because he possessed the navigational skills of his spiritual gender. In the meantime, he was trying to bring his 2 precious toys back to life, using the power of Danny Phantom paranormal magic. This, of course, didn't work. Needless to say, he was already well and truly walking down the path of insanity to his eventual demise. Long ago, he decided he was going to die young, and his desire to take others with him was growing by the day. Yet, he was still unsure of how to enact his demise, but that's irrelevant at this point. In the 6 years he'd spent making YouTube videos, after all the insane effort he put into video production, music creation, Black Ops 2 character designs, and murdering innocent toys, he managed to amazingly amass an unbelievably giant fandom of 4 to 5 people. Good job, Randy. You're a real internet superstar, aren't you? The picture he paints of himself will be an important detail later. So he had 6 fans. Well, they weren't traditional fans per se, more like a bubble. The bubble. It was a friendship group which had developed as a result of Rando's social media presence and edgelordiness. They'd chat with him during his live streams, retweet and heart his Twitter posts, and even express their views on his Benadryl-fueled life rants. All was right in the world. But after a while, Elf Boy decided he'd had enough of them darn keyboard warriors, constantly expressing pesky opinions and trying to connect with him on a personal level.
I don't do duets!
His first target was a fan who'd been around since almost the beginning. Dave. Dave was the oldest member of the group, therefore he's considered by Randy to be the authority figure, the parent. And we all know how Randy felt about his parents.
Kiss my f***ing ass.
In late 2014, Dave did something unspeakable. So detestable and disgusting, it was the straw that broke the voluntarily emaciated and socially camel's back. He wrote Randy a 51-page fanfic titled, A Gift for Randy. Wait, hang on. That's all he did? He took a huge chunk of time out of his life to write Randy a mini novel? Gee, I wish I had fans that dedicated. Anyway, the contents of this story are so unbelievably hilarious in hindsight, they're the perfect subject for another video. But if you don't want to wait an unreasonably long time for that video, I have a link in the description. Just remember to download Adobe Digital Editions, as this is an EPUB file. Oh, and if you're illiterate like the vast majority of the TikTok addicted populace these days, there's an audio version narrated by yours truly. Enjoy. Long story short, Randy partakes in oral sex, and the story tells him to grow up and stop putting himself in miserable situations so people will feel sorry for him. It goes without saying, this pissed Elf Boy off, and after a couple of days wallowing about in his one-of-a-kind bedroom filled with empty Bud Light bottles, he made the most sensible decision in his life. He blocked Dave without any warning. I'll be honest right now, I've done the same thing to people who may not have expected it, and I take responsibility for that. Even regret it. But this is something you should never do to a friend, internet or IRL, without at least informing them why. I've been on the receiving end, and it can hurt depending on the situation. Nevertheless, if you are on the receiving end, you should walk away and forget that person ever existed. It's for your own mental health, not theirs. If you took the time to read the novel or listen to my sexy voice, you can predict with ease how Dave may have reacted to being blocked by his favourite elf.
Look at his face!
Okay, on that super awkward note. Dave? You okay?
Horrified at the prospect of receiving coal for Christmas, not realising Randy was kicked out of Santa's workshop and left to die in the North Pole ages ago, Dave goes ballistic on his Twitter page. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
You f***ing birds!
Randy described this uproar from Dave as if he was a teenager being dumped by his girlfriend. Are you sure you properly read that fanfic, Randy? Or did you just stop at the first chapter because you were so disgusted and you lacked the patience to actually read it? Either way, there's a good reason it felt that way. I'm not sure if Randy was just exaggerating or actually telling the truth, since his Twitter accounts are gone and Dave has deleted all these posts. But if this is true, it's quite an immature response from Dave. It's really no wonder he was a fan of Randy's. You are what you attract, I suppose. As a further sign of the level of maturity possessed by Rando and his audience, one of his other fans, a guy by the name of TJ, decided in his absolute infinite wisdom to attempt to extract answers from Elf Boy. And he was merciless. Constantly, he'd message Randy on his social media pages and reference Dave in his live streams, but Randy wouldn't budge. Eventually, he got sick of TJ's antics and blocked him too. Since he refused to give TJ the answers he so desperately needed, I'll explain. You see, Randy's an anarchist, a free spirit bound not by alarm clocks or meaningless laws, but by his immeasurable imagination. These so-called leaders don't make and keep laws for the benefit of society. No! The law only exists to hold you back from fulfilling your purpose. It's not like the legal system in society has existed for many thousands of years, and these laws are a culmination of lessons learnt along the way or anything. Your only responsibility in life and in death is the pursuit of your own pleasure and happiness. Forget the happiness of others, for you are the only one whose existence is certain. Do whatever you want, and if anybody tells you otherwise, introduce them to your best friend. Buckshot! In other words, Randy was too much of a moronic, childish snowflake to accept and consider different perspectives on life. Because Dave had the audacity to supposedly treat him like a kid and challenge his worldviews, Randy decided he wanted nothing to do with him. Oh, and the fanfic, of course, but he claims he was planning on blocking him before then anyway. Totally. A month or two passes, and like an abusive ex, Randy decides he's sick of having no sycophantic worshippers to use and abuse. He unblocks the pair, apologises, and everything returns to whatever the elves consider normal. But in 2015, everything changed! It was a rebuilding year for Randy, just like for Carlton. Towards the end of his finale series, he accidentally stabbed his pinky finger, resulting in multiple operations and his ultimate revelation. EGS. 2015 was spent developing his animation techniques and other skills he'd require. As the sands of time flowed, Randy became angrier and more frustrated with life. Inevitably, he decided the bubble had to be popped, once and for all. His new targets? Sammy and Hayley. Like Dave and TJ, Sammy and Hayley had been fans of Randy for quite a while. Whenever Randy tweeted, they'd be the first to like and share. Whenever he streamed, they were there, interacting with him, Dave and TJ. They dedicated multiple pieces of fan art to him. They got wristbands and CDs of his anthology mailed to their addresses. They even went so far as to DM him constantly, opening up to him on their life struggles and emotions. Being that these people were unironically fans of the biggest dickhead in the universe, naturally they began to develop suicidal tendencies. Sammy in particular would go through a nasty bout of depression. She'd constantly post on her social media about the desire to die, her experiences with wrist cutting, and attempting to end her life. She'd go through cycles where she'd constantly tweet, then she'd say her goodbyes, tagging Randy, some other friends, and YouTubers in these posts, before going inactive for a couple of days. Her situation became so dire, not only did her real-life acquaintances visit to check if she was alive, but she was forced into a mental institution for her own safety and recovery. Before we move on, if anybody feels this way, know this: you are not alone. No matter how dark things may seem in life, no matter how cruel society can be, there's always hope. I've been there, surrounded by darkness and pessimism, feeling lost and hopeless. However worthless you may feel, know that you have the right to live, no matter how much of a leech on society you think you are. Life has a funny way of making things turn out for the best in the end. You never know. One day, you might have a watershed moment which leads you to your heart's desires. Sammy, I hope you're still alive. You have a friend in me. It's a well-established fact that Randy Stair was a social butterfly. He had attained a PhD in psychology with honours from Harvard. Whenever he spoke, those around him would be left in a state of dopamine-fueled bliss, eating rainbows and feeling grateful for the incredible experience of meeting their hero. He aspired to becoming President of the United States, and with his powerful social accolades, this ambition was only a matter of time. I am, of course, lying here. Witnessing Sammy's mental state firsthand, what was the ultimate conclusion our prospective flaming hot deceased ghost girl came to? Did he believe Sammy was genuinely struggling with her feelings, opening up to him because he was her idol and she trusted him? Did he think that maybe, just maybe, she needed a helping hand, not only from professionals, but her friends? Come on, it's Randy. What do you think? Everything's about Elf Boy in his life. He came to, perhaps, the most Sheldon Cooper level conclusion in history. She wasn't friends with him and wanted to see him succeed because she cared about him or his content. She didn't open up to him about her feelings because she trusted him or anything. No. Sammy was dragging Randy into her problems, kicking and screaming for clout and attention. Not only was Randy a famous YouTuber making millions of dollars from his totally appropriate and not morbidly themed videos, which would attract people like Sammy to him, but he also had connections with other super famous, totally not dying and increasingly irrelevant channels. Randy was a mere stepping stone for Sammy and Hayley's ambitions. I felt like they were using me for attention, and when I didn't respond to stuff, or would ignore them, they'd never let me live it down, especially if I made mistakes. I began to think the suicide was all for attention, to get me to interact with her.
I still stand by the fact that it was for attention most of the time. They didn't care about my videos. They just wanted attention from me, since I was somewhat decent on YouTube with viewership and collaborations with higher up YouTubers. All the live streams, all the fan art, memes and edits, all the direct messages. It was all just for attention, and being they had nothing better to do.
Honestly, this is a level of narcissism and delusion which you could only really expect from Randy. Oh. This is Randy, isn't it? Point is, you had around 9,000 or so subscribers, which is admirable if you'd taken the path I'd taken. But most of your subscribers were garnered either through sub for subbing, or from collaborating with Make Me Bad 35. Some were even obtained supposedly through a comment made from Fred, but that's another story. Oh, and let's not forget the video of your pops being run over twice, which went viral. But videos like that are the kind which you scroll through, forgetting about right after. Look, the point is, most of your so-called fans weren't really fans of you per se. They were dedicated fans of Damien. You only have to look at his EGS Productions channel before the shooting. How many subscribers did it have? Let me put it this way. I have more subscribers than his EGS channel did 3 days after the shooting, before it got shut down. Oh, and one more point. Damien wasn't exactly doing well either, which you admitted multiple times. He was one of the biggest victims of the adpocalypse, losing almost all of his revenue due to the nature of his videos. You weren't famous, Randy, not until after you died, when people discovered how much of a dank meme you are. Randy reached his boiling point.
I had enough of it. I didn't want to see that in my feed.
So you're fine with seeing Columbine suicide photos, creating pathetic animations of school shootings, and content with vile, graphically detailed language, yet the second somebody opens up about how they're feeling, it's too much for your precious mind. Sure, Elf Boy. You ran a channel which posted content constantly referencing themes of death and self-harm, yet you expected like-minded people not to be attracted to it? Idiot.
Nor did I even want to be associated with someone who was bringing me down with problems that were her own fault.
I find it funny how he accuses Sammy of bringing him down with her depression and suicidal ideations, yet he thought he had the right to take other people's lives to fulfill his suicidal ghost girl fantasies. It's also interesting how he holds her accountable for her own feelings, yet he can't hold himself to these same standards. Isn't it fate, Elf Boy? Wasn't she just destined to feel this way? How would you know she wasn't part of the squad too? Or do you just not like her enough for her to be part of it? I'm pretty sure by now you can guess how Randy decides to solve this supposed problem. Realizing the gravity of his situation, he blocks Sammy. Just friends? No. Listen here, Elf Boy, you scrawny little bowl-cut quit. I know you're dead, and even if you can hear me from the other side, assuming it exists, you won't listen. But I'll say it anyway. I've been on the receiving end of this. When you're in desperate need of a friend and they shut you out, especially for such a bullshit reason as
you're behaving weirdly, or you're just being a detention,
it f***ing hurts. And I mean really hurts. And this was just a random friend who I wasn't even close with. Your duty in life as a member of society and as a leader is to protect and lift up those around you. When someone is clearly going through a big struggle, you don't spit in their face and slam the door shut. You help them out. Whether or not she was faking it is irrelevant. Granted, you may not have had the mental capacity to give her the attention and advice she needed. But the least you could have done was provide her with a hotline number for whatever the Yankee equivalent of Lifeline is. At least be somewhat nice to her and be honest with how you are. Honesty can avoid many disputes in life. But then again, this is Elf Boy we're talking about here.
I want people to end their lives.
Where does Hayley fit into this? Well, she was BFFs with Sammy, so when Randy blocked her, Hayley naturally reached out to Elf Boy and tried to convince him to unblock her. Randy claimed Hayley was trying to make him feel remorseful for what he did. So he should. What kind of psychopath does that to someone who's clearly suffering from a mental illness? So Randy sat on this for a few days. And eventually, he saw the light. He looked inwards towards his own emotions, his own struggles with depression and self-loathing. He realised that he and Sammy had more in common than he realised. He unblocked her, apologising for his nasty behaviour. They decided to meet in person and finally get to know each other, if you know what I mean. Wink wink. Sammy confessed her feelings of attraction for Randy. She'd never felt this way about an elf her entire life. Opening up to him about the desire to die was an attempt to connect with Randy on an emotional level. Finally, the floodgates opened. Deep down, Randy felt the same way about her. I mean, come on, look at her, she's so damn cute. He told her, before giving her a big sloppy kiss on the bottom. They went on to get married, buy a home, and have hundreds of little elves that run around, causing havoc. They even managed to establish their own workshop to compete with Santa, using their devil spawn as slave labor. Yes, he did end up unblocking her after a few days, but it wasn't due to any form of compassion, empathy, remorse, or guilt.
Either way, I gave it a few days and gave in. Not because I felt remorse, but because my fan base was diminished. There wasn't any interaction on my Twitter, Facebook, etc. Things were dry. With Sammy and the bubble around, things were hopping. I didn't want to dry out and fade into YouTube oblivion, so I unblocked her.
The hypocrisy is strong with this individual. It's so ironic that he blasts someone like Sammy into oblivion for being a clout-seeking attention who was using him, yet he decides to unblock her so he can do the same thing. He claims they needed his attention, yet they were the only ones who interacted with him. Practice what you preach, elf boy. There were plenty of other people he used too. But it wasn't long before, yet again, for the trillionth goddamn time, Randy had enough of Sammy's pose, TJ's antics, and Dave's authoritarianism. You see, Rando, this is where you're supposed to just block them and forget they even existed. Just move on. But no, you've got the personality of a drama king with an IQ that makes Martin Bryant look like Albert Einstein. This time when he blocked Sammy, he left her a little message.
He said, "When you quit being a stuck-up attention 5-year-old, give me a call."
Honestly, I'm speechless. How f***ing dare you, elf boy? You might have thought she was faking it. I severely doubt that you did though, because you said when she was in the mental institution, she was forced to take off your Pioneers Productions wristband, so clearly this drama started after the fact. You know when you see someone in school or at work acting self-loathing and depressed, and you have the thought of, oh, they're probably just doing that for attention. Well, you don't say that to their face! Not unless it's constructive criticism with the intent to help improve them, and they ask for a genuine opposing opinion. Even then, you should be sensitive, which clearly Randy wasn't. Let me put it to you this way, elf boy. If she was doing this for attention, why did she cut herself? What kind of normal, mentally stable person does that? I'm not saying people who cut themselves are bad. I'm saying they need genuine help and support. Honestly, your remark could very well have been the difference between Sammy choosing to live or actually taking her own life. But it's not like you care, do you?
I want people to end their lives.
Once Hayley hears about Elf Boy's latest social stunt, she confronts him. Randy has the absolute audacity to think he has control over her, so like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, he gives her the ultimatum. It's either him or the bubble. Like Austria-Hungary, he had no intention of keeping the peace. He knew Sammy and Hayley were like two peas in a pod, so she was as likely to accept this ultimatum as the Serbs. Hayley goes ballistic, and so begins the biggest online war in the history of humanity. Everybody in the group, being somewhat rational and empathetic people, realised that Randy was completely in the wrong. I mean, honestly, it doesn't take a genius to realise calling a depressed person an attention 5-year-old is not exactly the right thing to do.
So I get made out to be an asshole and virtually like a Nazi for blocking someone on the internet who had depression. No one in the bubble saw things the way I did. They all saw it as them being hurt, when in reality, I was the one who was hurt.
1. Didn't you idolise Eric Harris, who was pretty much a neo-Nazi? 2. What if the situation was reversed? How would you react?
You f***ing birds!
3. They had a right to feel hurt because you were the one who pushed them away when they opened up to you, presumably on how your content related to them and how they felt about life. 4. Yes, them blowing up on you might be immature, and the drama that followed definitely could have been avoided, but you were the instigator. What they did pales in comparison to your actions. It's this kind of bullshit victimhood mentality that I absolutely f***ing hate. The beehive was hit, the damage was done. Rando decided that he wanted to keep tabs on his old friends. I'm getting some real controlling, abusive ex-husband vibes here. He creates a sock account and stalks them both, discovering their edgelord tweets discussing their newfound distaste for elves. Remember the wristbands and CD copies of the anthology he gave to them? Well, Sammy, Hayley and TJ destroyed them. Yep. They recorded themselves cutting the wristbands up, burning the letters Randy sent to them, and destroying the CDs. But here's the kicker. They gave Amber McLean Jr. their addresses so he could ship them out. Keep this fact in mind. A year later, in 2016, Randy decided in his infinite wisdom to reignite the feud by creating an EGS tape titled A Promise Kept. This was released to YouTube on April the 9th, and to say it was vile is an understatement of grand proportions. It is absolutely inappropriate, irresponsible, reckless, and has no place on the internet. But you don't need me to tell you this. I have it right here. Okay, obviously I'm not going to showcase the more brutal details. I'll just describe them. But I wanted to point out a few parts of the video I find particularly distasteful. Also, if I didn't make it obvious enough, Randy directed this implicitly towards Sammy and Hayley. He admitted it in his journal, but it's so obvious it'd be harder to tell the difference between a cat and a dog. It begins with a brief shot of a newspaper with a report of a missing girl. He talks about how words on a computer screen can reveal a lot about somebody, hence why he decided to upload everything to the internet before he died. Honestly, he really gave me the nuclear code to what little reputation he had left. Anyway, let's watch.
You're gonna pay for what you did to me!
And what exactly did they do, elf boy? Call you out for the narcissistic piece of shit you are? When someone is in need, you help them. I feel guilty not playing with my neighbour's dog, let alone when I refuse to help someone or invite them over.
You're gonna rot from the inside out, you attention-seeking piece of shit!
Classic elf projection. You only chose to unblock her the first time because you missed the attention she gave you. The same applies for Dave and TJ. You're such a f***ing hypocrite.
I'm gonna haunt your every last breath until the day you stop breathing for what you did to me!
Again, assuming they did something somewhat bad to you, which they didn't, wouldn't that be a little petty of you? Why should it matter what the people on Earth are doing if you never belonged there in the first place? Also, that's quite overkill. He describes how he planned on violently torturing her as punishment for her supposed crimes. How he thought this video was a good idea, it honestly astounds me. Like it says in one of your favourite movies.
Let it go, let it go.
People may see me as psychotic.
Gee, I wonder why.
I'm not a psycho.
Okay, let's assume this is true. Let's give you the benefit of the doubt. If so, that makes what you did and the way you thought worse. It shows me you knew what you were doing was bad, yet you put in the effort to do it anyway. Interestingly enough, my stance on you has given you the respect so far to assume that you are not in fact psychotic. But the only other conclusion I can make is that you are pure evil. He also makes multiple references to ensuring her life doesn't go on for much longer. I wonder how they must have felt when they were watching this. We'll find out.
I cared for you.
By calling her an attention 5-year-old, blocking her multiple times when she opened up to you, and ultimately making this video. Sure thing, Rando.
I guided you.
To the path of depression, despair, darkness, and eventual suicide? Here's some life advice for you, man to boy. A true leader doesn't push people to the brink of taking their own lives. A true leader lifts those up around him. He protects them from themselves and others. He guides them towards the light of a better future. A true leader makes sacrifices to ensure not only the individual, but the collective is happy and healthy. Did you do any of that? Be honest, elf boy. Not only did you push people away who created multiple pieces of fan art showing their appreciation, even helping you to live a better life, but you also pushed those away who were suffering from similar conditions you claim to have suffered. Randy, you are such a disappointment.
I stayed up late for you.
Bro, didn't you work night shift? Staying up late isn't the flex you think it is.
I helped you stop cutting your f***ing wrist, for Christ's sake.
Where's the proof, elf boy? If anything, you most likely made the situation worse by blocking her out of the blue and calling her names. Assuming she did stop cutting her wrists during the time you were her friend, how do you know it wasn't other members of the bubble, such as Haley, that actually helped her achieve this?
And you dragged me through the depths with lies.
What lies? When has she lied to you?
You're a cold-hearted
Projection.
You think you're hot
Projection.
but the truth is, you couldn't defend yourself with a loaded gun at your feet.
Coming from a guy with a shooting accuracy worse than Harry Mackay's goal kicking, that's really quite rich. Then again, he did manage to kill 3 people. Look, the script for this video was already 9 pages long, so I'll cut it here. He continues to make violent threats towards her, even mentioning her boyfriend and his manhood. The video ends with Randy holding a severed head, saying he always keeps his promises, which implies that he's planning on killing Sammy. This video, of course, wasn't taken too kindly by Sammy and Haley. They, rightfully so, interpreted it as Randy threatening to kill them. This is where their addresses come into play. They began to feel concerned for their privacy, since they gave Randy their home addresses so he could ship out his trashy merch. Whenever he posted anything related to guns or death, you know, the typical Randy style posting, they'd make posts in response referring to him as the monster they could finally see. In hindsight, of course, they definitely had a right to be concerned for their privacy. Another funny thing they'd do, which really isn't funny, was threatening to leak Randy's address. Funnily enough, I actually have his address, 16th... No, I'm not that scummy to dox him. Plus his parents moved out almost half a year ago. In the end, Randy deleted all the tweets he made about the bubble, calling them stupid. It's a shame really, since I needed those tweets as evidence for this video. But hey, what's a few hydrogen bombs when you already have an entire nuclear arsenal? Plus his old Twitter accounts have been permabanned anyway as of the 2nd of July. The final reference he makes of Sammy and Haley is in his house tour video 2 days prior to the massacre, where he mentions Haley cutting up her Pioneer's production wristbands.
I sent the rest of them to Haley, and she cut them up, so you.
But the funniest part of this whole drama? The rest of the bubble are still friends, or at least they were in 2017. Elf Boy couldn't even pop the bubble properly. It goes to show that sometimes in life, all you need to do is cut out a tumour, and everything becomes better. But guess who? Out of all the group members, Randy still somewhat talked to frequently. Guess who?
We're gonna be together forever!
Perhaps Randy is gay after all. So, what have we learnt today, folks? First, never trust elves. It's not worth the risk, even if Santa delivers you more presents for Christmas. Second, treat your audience with respect, honesty, and integrity. Your job as a leader is to encourage people to create a better world for everybody, not to end their own lives. If you have a criticism you need to make, and the person isn't a complete butthole, please try to be diplomatic. Third, practice what you preach before you on somebody else. In fact, I'll take this step myself. If you're watching this, EGS Kenzie, I'm willing to negotiate and open up a dialogue. My offer is still on the table. Apologise to the victims and their families for making stared out fan art, and I'm willing to apologise for any of my wrongdoings, and I'll delete my video on you. Be sure to contact me via my email address, with the proof that you actually are EGS Kenzie, of course. You can find it in my YouTube channel. You can also DM me on Discord if you want, but I probably won't read it. Most importantly, there are people who will say stuff like, "Oh, Randy was crying out for help and all he needed was attention," or this and that. Truth about life, as hard as this may be to swallow, is that it's a two-way street. If it's compassion, empathy and love you desire, first, you must be capable of giving it back to the world. Remember, if somebody tells you to be more compassionate to Elfboy here, tell them to show the same level of compassion he showed towards Sammy. None. All my life, I've felt trapped, lost in a sea of confusion. I was promised a life of lucrative fortune, of many friends and girlfriends. All I had to do was work hard. I was eager, I was excited. When that bell rang for the final time, I felt ready to tackle a brave new world. Oh, how naive I was. I worked hard. I was nice. I went the extra mile. But alas, it wasn't enough. I was bullied, ridiculed, rejected, isolated. What is it about me that you don't like? How come everyone else can live their lives so easily but not me? Every day I see my peers accomplish amazing things. They find new jobs, their relationships blossom. Heck, some of these fuckers have even managed to buy homes, get married and have kids. Yet I'm stuck here at the mercy of my parents, deteriorating, decaying into the abyss. I sit here, rotting in a dingy basement filled with rats and spiders. What have I done wrong? What did I do to deserve this? Life is like a giant, toxic cloud of ash and smog. With every second, it clenches its putrid, iron fists around my throat, harder and harder.
I just can't take this anymore. When will this torture end? I thought... Why are you here? How did you get in? Every day, I live with my parents. I've never held down a job, never had a girlfriend, never been on a date for fuck's sake. Trust me, I try. I really do. I've been applying to hundreds upon hundreds of jobs. Been swiping left hundreds upon hundreds of times. Yet, all I receive is silence. All my life, I felt lost. I could never see myself climbing the corporate ladder, getting married, having kids, or any of that bullshit. All I've seen in my future is the abyss. What do I need to do to make this happen, Mavis? I will do what I must. Thank you. Where did she... I wonder what she meant by my... My great-grandfather!